It is the spring of 1906. A 9-part series of articles entitled "The Treason of the Senate" has been appearing in Cosmopolitan magazine since February. Written by David Graham Phillips, the articles are a national sensation. In them, Phillips characterizes 21 U.S. senators as treacherous thieves, bribers, and perjurers, men whose betrayal of the public trust amounts to no less than giving aid and comfort to the nation's enemies. Much like Jacob Kepler's cartoon, The Bosses of the Senate, published 17 years earlier, Phillips' outspoken articles dramatize one of the most important reform issues of the day, the performance of the United States Senate. Such unflattering images of the nation's most elite legislative body were a far cry from what the framers had intended when they drafted the Constitution. They believed that individuals of rank, property, and education should occupy the Senate. The senators' sober judgment would serve as a check on the impulsive tendencies of the more democratic House of Representatives. The Constitutional Convention considered several means of choosing senators. One was to let the people themselves in each state vote. Another was to elect senators through state legislatures. The framers chose this option after much debate. They believed this process was more likely to produce senators of exceptional virtue and wisdom. In fact, the Senate did enjoy an illustrious reputation in the first half of the 19th century, with such distinguished members as Daniel Webster and John C. Calhoun. But in the decades following the Civil War, the image of the Senate changed. In the eyes of its critics, both the Senate itself and the state legislatures that selected its members fell victim to the corrupting influence of new wealth and powerful interests. Many believed that the election of senators by state legislators encouraged influence peddling and backroom deals. Some states went without senators for months at a time because their legislators could not agree on candidates. One contested election in Missouri even incited a riot on the floor of the legislature.
Are the American people fit to govern themselves, to rule themselves, to control? I believe they are.
In the early 20th century, progressive reformers believed that the cure for the ills of democracy was more democracy. They argued that greater accountability to the people would help purify government and make it more responsive to the social and economic problems of the day. The direct election of senators became one of their goals. Opponents said that reformers had greatly exaggerated the problems. They argued that the system of indirect election had worked well, and that a change would fundamentally alter the system of checks and balances created by the framers. They feared that taking the election of senators out of the hands of state government would undermine states' rights and the principle of federalism. And they doubted that direct election would significantly change the realities of political life. Support for a constitutional amendment began in the 1890s and gained momentum in the early 20th century. Reformers recognized that determined opposition in the Senate would prevent Congress from taking the initiative, so they concentrated their efforts on the states with the introduction of popular preference primaries in the selection of senators. These efforts were eventually rewarded with the passage of the 17th Amendment, certified on May 31, 1913, which provided for the direct election of senators.